Question number 9. Scholarly accounts of the Chicano movement, a movement that advocated for the social, political, and cultural empowerment of Mexican Americans and reached its zenith in the 1960s and 1970s, tend to focus on the most militant, outspoken figures in the movement, making it seem uniformly radical. Geographer Juan Herrera has shown, however, that if we shift our focus toward the way the movement manifested in comparatively low profile neighborhood institutions and projects, we see participants espousing an array of political orientations and approaches to community activism. Which choice best describes the function of the underlined portion in the text as a whole? Is it A, it presents a trend in scholarship on the Chicano movement that the text claims has been re-evaluated by researchers in light of Herrera's work on the movement's participants? B, it identifies an aspect of the Chicano movement that the text implies was overemphasized by scholars due to their own political orientations. C, it describes a common approach to studying the Chicano movement that, according to the text, obscures the ideological diversity of the movement's participants. D, it summarizes the conventional method for analyzing the Chicano movement, which the text suggests creates a misleading impression of the effectiveness of neighborhood institutions and projects. So, if you observe first, we are talking about the scholarly accounts of the Chicano movement, and they are describing what it was. So, it was about the social, political, and cultural empowerment of Mexican Americans. But this movement, it focuses on the most militant, outspoken figures, and it makes it seem uniformly radical. But then geographer Juan Herrera has shown something else, however, that if we shift our focus toward the way the movement manifested in comparatively low profile neighborhood institutions, we see participants espousing an array of political orientations and approaches. So it was not fully radical or something. The underlying portion we have to talk about, the function of it, tend to focus on the most militant, outspoken figures in the movement. So which should we choose? So if you said C, well done, that is the correct answer. Choice C is the best answer because it most accurately describes how the underlying portion functions in the text as a whole. The text begins by mentioning scholarly accounts of the Chicano movement, which the underlying portion describes as tending to focus on the most militant, outspoken figures in the movement, making the movement as a whole seem uniformly radical. Juan Herrera shows that focusing less on such militant figures and instead paying more attention to manifestations of the Chicano movement in less widely known neighborhood institutions and projects would reveal that the movement's participants embraced a range of political orientations and approaches. So thus the underlined portion describes a common approach. So this underlined portion is showing normally how they are approaching the Chicano movement study. And according to the text, it obscures the ideological diversity of the movement's participants. So that's why C is the best answer. A is incorrect. Though the underlined portion does represent a trend in scholarship on the Chicano movement, the text does not indicate that other scholars have re-evaluated their methods in light of Herrera's work. It only indicates that Herrera's work suggests that the work of those scholars does not provide a complete picture of the Chicano movement. B is incorrect. Though the underlined portion does identify an aspect of the Chicano movement that the text indicates has been overemphasized, the text does not discuss the political orientations of the scholars whose work is mentioned in the text. And choice D is incorrect. Though the underlined portion does summarize the conventional method for analyzing the Chicano movement, the rest of the text does not address the effectiveness of comparatively low profile neighborhood institutions and projects. So effectiveness of neighborhood institutions and projects, that's not mentioned. Instead, the text suggests that those projects were led by people with a variety of approaches to community activism. So I hope that's clear.